Many boards around the state, including this one, have worked to control our relative increase, and for us it's 3.6% increase over last year's budget. Many school boards, or a few school boards we've read, have level funded and ended up with a tax rate increase of 11, 12, 13%. Ours will be somewhere in the ballpark of 11.75%, and that's a 3.6 increase over last year's budget. Many of the factors, which we're going to look at in a little bit, that resulted in that increase are beyond our control. One of them being the statewide tax rate, which is set down in Montpelier, that increased 7.45%. Again, out of our school board's control. My question is, what is the plan for your administration to control those factors that the school board cannot?
So good question, and let me be clear. I have suggested to voters that they should scrutinize their school budgets carefully, as we always do in Vermont. Thanks to those of you that showed up today to do it, because without you, this process doesn't work. But I've also said we're all in this together, and we face this challenge together. So what's the problem? Why are we facing this challenge? Let's get down to it. There are a few things that are driving property taxes that are making it really tough for Vermonters to afford to pay their bill. The first is, as you know, in the last several years, we've seen a 20% drop in the number of students in our schools. And going forward, that trend's going to continue. So if you look at your school budget or others, and I know you know this, if you actually look at your per pupil spending, divide your budget by the number of kids you're educating, those numbers are all going up generally across the state because we have fewer and fewer kids in our schools. So I think it was you actually that said in a recent article that I read in a Richmond paper, or one of the papers here, we've got to have a real conversation as not just this school, but as communities about how we have a school system that can actually give our kids the very best education without classes that are so teeny that they, first of all, from an educational quality standpoint, don't make sense. And secondly, from a financial standpoint, don't make sense. So that's really the conversation that we have to have. We're doing our part, both in the legislature and in my office, to try to give incentives to communities to have those conversations and make some tough decisions. My own view is that if you really want to see a mess, ask Montpelier to decide what schools should remain open, what schools should close, how governance should be handled. So I'm a big believer as a local control person that we need to give schools the incentives to be able to have those conversations, figure out the economics of it, but we do have to right-size our education system so that we have schools that not only are the best, but that we can afford. And my own view is when you have schools down to 3 or 4 or 5 kids in a classroom, that's not really great for the kids either. I mean, there's sort of a critical mass to education that makes this whole system work. So we can get into the weeds on all this. Now, in terms of statewide property tax, listen, I often read in the press, Montpelier set the statewide property tax at 7 cents or 6 cents. All Montpelier does is set the statewide property tax based upon the votes that happen here and everywhere else across Vermont. It's not an arbitrary number. It's based upon what school budgets, what local voters approve. So, we're all in this one together. We got to find better ways to deliver even better quality in light of the fact we've got dwindling enrollment, and that's really what's driving this. Now, you know well, there's special education issues, there's all kinds of issues. But we're in this one together. We got to do better. We know that Vermonters can't afford 10, 11, 12% increase in property tax on an annual basis. And you guys are doing a great job. We hope you're doing a great job. Let's work together to right-size our education system to the students that we've got coming into the schools, because the number's going to keep going down.